I want you to think of somebody that you love. Picture them now. Your child, a grandchild, a mom, a dad, partner, spouse, sibling, or best friend. Where do they attend school? Where do they go to work or church, or where do they pray? What is their name? What was the last thing that you said to them? Are there any family traditions or vacations or life milestones that recently made you smile? What is that person's name? Maybe they came with you to this march. And I want you to say their name, and I'll do it first as an example, and then you repeat after me. Sound good?
Yes.
So when I count down from 3, this is an example, I'll do it first. You say the person that you just thought of. So 1, 2, 3, Lauren is what I would say. Yes. Lauren has many fans, including me. Lauren's my sister, for those of you that don't know. Okay, are you ready on 3? 1, 2, 3, Lauren! Now, let's say it one more time, very loud, so that every single senator in Washington, D.C. and across the country can hear you. 1, 2, 3, Lauren! Good. Now imagine your loved one is at a shopping center grabbing some lunch. It's the middle of the day. You get a notification that says shooting that pops up on your phone with the name of a city where your loved one lives. You text and there's no response. You call. There's no answer. You repeat this 50 more times. Could you imagine seeing their name on a growing list of victims of gun violence? Unfortunately, many of us that are here can. That list has added 200,000 names just like your loved one since the shooting that happened at my high school in Parkland, Florida in 2018. There are too many people who have lived this gut-wrenching reality every single day because there are over 100 people who have loved ones that die from gun deaths in this country that this is not a simulation for, that this happens to and will happen to tomorrow, the next day, and the day after. And unfortunately, that could be your loved one. And maybe you don't have to imagine this because it's already happened to you. I'm here because I don't want anybody to live this nightmare anymore. No matter your politics, no one should. I'm here because, like you, I love this country. And for it to function, we need to understand that rights are power, and with power comes responsibility. All Americans have a right to not be shot, a right to safety. Nowhere in the Constitution is unrestricted access to weapons of war a guaranteed right. We've seen the damage that AR-15s do when we look at the innocent children of Uvalde. Tiny coffins horrify us. Tiny coffins filled with small, mutilated, and decapitated bodies. That should fill us with rage and demands for change. Not endless debate, but demands for change. Now, not tomorrow, not tomorrow, the next day, or the next week, or next year. Now! You agree with that? Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that? You gotta be louder! Do you agree with that? Make sure that every single senator can hear you. Do you agree with that? Sorry, I'm so angry.
Don't be sorry.
Here's the reality. If our government can't do anything to stop 19 kids from being killed and slaughtered in their own school and decapitated, it's time to change who is in government. next shooter is already plotting his attack, while the federal government pretends it can do nothing to stop it. Since the shooting in Texas, the Senate has done only one thing. They have gone on recess. Now look, no matter if you are a gun owner or a Republican or not a Republican, we all agree we must act to stop this. How much longer are we going to debate this until we realize that we obviously have different opinions, but let's not let that stop us from doing the small thing, anything, even if it could stop the next just one Parkland from happening, because this is the cost of that. All of us agree that we must end gun violence. Every responsible gun owner, every single person, no American wants their kid to be in danger inside of their school or outside of their schools. And we must act to stop this violence. But you know what? This time is different. Let's declare it right now and say it with me loud. This time is different. Louder. This time is different. Hold up your signs and say it. This time is different. Manny, can you take a photo? There's no photographer up here. This! Ready? Again! Louder! This time is different! This time is different! This time is different! Okay, why is this time different? It's because since we marched in 2018, we passed over 150 pieces of gun safety legislation and laws since the first time that we marched. That have saved lives. We raised the age to own guns in the state of Florida. You know how hard that is? In a Republican legislature. Where we were told as young people that you're never going to get that change. Guess what? We did. And if we did that in Tallahassee, we can do it on Capitol Hill and in our Senate right now. We required background checks on every gun sale in Virginia. We banned guns from polling places to protect our democracy in Colorado. We defeated more NRA-backed politicians as a group of teenagers and young people than ever before in American history in 2018. We have had the highest rates, some of the highest rates of youth voter turnout in American history. And you know why I know this time is different? Because not only do we have more Republicans and gun owners and Democrats and independents marching with us than ever before. The last time that I spoke at an event like this, we didn't have the White House, we didn't have the Senate or the House, and now we have all three. And that's because of you. Now it's time to get all of them to act. In 4 short years, we went from not having the Senate, the House, or the White House, and me even hanging up on the White House when Donald Trump's White House called me and said, we want to have a listening session. I said, we don't need to have a listening session. We need to have action. And in 4 years, the reason why I know this time is different is because I went from hanging up on the White House to going and meeting in the West Wing because we turned out and voted. We've changed culture too. Together we made progress in Republican-led states that people told us was impossible. We brought proven solutions like violence intervention that was pioneered by Black activists and communities to the forefront of national policy and secured funding for those programs and research like never before. Lastly, we made the NRA financially weak and culturally irrelevant. The movement to end gun violence is more diverse and representative of the country than ever before, because it has to be. No one is safe in any community, no matter if it looks like yours or not. This time, responsible gun owners are aligned on the basic solutions we need to keep our kids safe from dying, and the Uvalde shooting, and since the Uvalde shooting, a majority of Americans say, the vast majority of Americans say that stopping gun violence is a top issue for them, because this is not a political issue, this is a moral issue. Not only do people, regardless of political affiliation, agree with their hearts and minds, they are mobilizing alongside us. Right now, marching with us are more responsible gun owners and Republicans and Democrats than ever before. Because we are united together against gun violence as Americans, first and foremost. We march and we make change. Let me tell you a story. After the Parkland shooting, then Republican Governor Rick Scott signed into law a 3-day waiting period for gun purchases and for a gun sale and raised the age to 21 from 18. This was one of the 150 pieces of legislation that we, all of us, not me, us, passed because you showed up. And I hear time and time again, David, these laws don't work. Let me tell you a story. These laws do work. And you know why? Because the law that we passed in Florida, my mother got a death threat that said, F with the NRA and you will be DOA.
Fuck the NRA!
Yes, that's right. I can't say that on TV though. But law enforcement used the red flag law that we created, that we passed in the wake of Parkland, to disarm the individual who sent my mom a death threat and threatened to kill her via court order. Seems like these laws work to me. That law, because of us turning out, very likely may have saved me from having to bury my own mother. These laws work. People say that these laws don't work, and what's funny is, there's a strong recent public health example that it lays out exactly what we need to do to prevent gun violence. Just look at the tobacco industry. We need to treat guns the way that we treated cigarettes 30 years ago. With cigarettes, we didn't just change the laws, we addressed why people wanted to smoke in the first place, and it can't be either or, it must be both.
Yes.
We have to address how people get guns and why they feel the need to pick them up in the first place.
Yes.
We must address the fact that the reason why communities like Parkland don't have shootings on a daily basis isn't because we necessarily have the strongest laws in the country, it's because we have some of the most resources in the country.
Exactly.
Gun violence is a symptom of injustice. And if Parkland is safe, but Southeast DC is not safe, or Miami is not safe, we are not done fighting. Because we want every child and every loved one to be safe in every zip code, no matter if they have the same skin color or pray to the same God as us, because all of us deserve protection. We addressed why cigarettes were so easy to access, especially for poor kids and kids of color. And we stamped out the corruption, misinformation, and lies of big tobacco. And guess what? We're going to do the same thing with guns. Gun industry. Let's hold the gun industry to the same standard as we held the tobacco industry. We must answer, why are people so attracted to guns? Why do we buy the lies of the gun lobby that a gun equals safety when the opposite has been proven time and time again to be true? Why is it easier for an 18-year-old to buy a beer or rent a car or buy a gun than it is to vote? The common argument for for not taking these basic steps is that criminals don't obey laws. No duh. Criminals don't obey laws by definition, but look, I will admit this to you, no law is perfect, but the shooter at my high school was not a criminal mastermind. He was a 19-year-old racist who legally obtained an AR-15. He did not have deep connections to the black market. The 18-year-old in Texas, the 18-year-old in Buffalo, they were not criminal masterminds with deep connections to the black market. They were barely adults that were able to legally obtain a weapon of mass destruction, and they waited until they were old enough to buy that gun. Let's raise the age. Let's raise the age right now. Let's raise the age. Even if we just prevent one more shooting, it's worth it because those victims could be your best friend or kid that you just named. The time for these petty arguments is up. Over the years, I have encountered my fair share of people who disagree with me. Some of them went so far as to deny me my own lived reality as a school shooting survivor and called me a crisis actor. But the reason why I know that this time is different is because I've gotten more messages than ever before from those same people that said, David, I'm sorry, we have to do something about this. We are working together to address this. As a country, we must heal and address why these shootings continue. We also must address the fact that mental health does have a role to play in stopping gun violence, but that racism is not a mental illness. Patriotism hatred, racism, radicalization, xenophobia are not mental illnesses. 2/3 of gun deaths are suicides. Mental health does have a role to play in addressing that. We need to address the fact that Black and brown communities are traumatized daily by gun violence, and they don't get the same resources or support that Parkland did.
Yes.
Every community deserves the support that Parkland got. Every community. Every single community. That is the role that mental health plays here. Let's stop using mental health as a scapegoat for confronting white supremacy in our country. Let's remember that the argument of just funding more mental health has been tried constantly again and again, and we do need to fund mental health more while recognizing racism is not a mental illness. But let's also recognize, after Columbine, they said, you know what we need is more good guys with guns in our schools. Let's remember, let's think for a second. Teachers feel the same way. Thank you to NEA and AFT for being here. I'll talk about you in a minute. We love you. Let's remember, there was a good guy with a gun at my high school. He only proved to be a coward with a gun.
Yes. Yes.
Let's remember that in Texas, outside of the school, there were 19 good guys with guns, heavily armored and trained, and they failed. First responders need to be the last resort and not the first to saving our kids from gun violence. Because the reality is putting more cops in schools hasn't worked, and it won't, because it only is going to keep... Let's think about who actually is made more safe by that, but also realize that putting more cops in schools actually may be a form of endangering our students as well. For the students that don't have the privilege of having my skin color. Or the fact that I am an American citizen. We need to stop these shooters before they get on campus and stop endangering the lives of our first responders, our students and teachers, because people on Capitol Hill don't want to do their job and protect us. Now, what I'm not demanding is that the government take your guns away. What I am saying is that we are neither pro-gun or anti-gun. We are all pro-peace. We have the same goal here of peace. Let's focus on what we can agree on. Assault rifles are designed only for one purpose, to be a killing machine. Surely, we should be taking as many steps as possible to make these deadly weapons harder to access and properly vetting every single person who desires to own them in the first place. Because if you want to have an AR-15, guess what? I want to have my classmates be alive right now. This time is different because we all see it a bit more clearly. Our enemy is not the left or right. Our common enemy is gun violence. Because I can respect those who don't agree with me all the time. What I can't accept, though, is the notion that there is nothing that we can do to stop gun violence and save our kids. We must act now! Because the children that are dying every day are not Democrats or Republicans, they are T-ball players and honor roll students with bright futures and big dreams. Every time one of their lives is being taken, someone is motivated to join this fight. We will work arm in arm with every single one of them. And when we win this fight in the end, our history will look back, and the only question that they will ask is, why the hell did this take so long? Because we will win. Peace will win. But it will take persistence. Young people did everything right. To the people who marched 4 years ago and are still marching today, we've done everything that has been asked of us. The movement is not broken, our government is broken, and it's time to fix it. Many states have listened. The failure to pass a single cent at the federal level to curb gun violence rests squarely with Washington, right here in the seat of our democracy, with the politicians who refuse to do their jobs and keep us alive. Because the status quo of letting kids die is profitable to them. The status quo of only sending your thoughts and prayers, only praying something bigger will come up in the news like Mitch McConnell is doing right now, enables them to stay in power. Mitch McConnell needs us to forget about this. He needs us to move on. but we can't because the next kid or best friend or parent who dies could be yours. This summer, we change the status quo. Vote them out! Vote them out! Louder! Vote them out! Vote them out! Louder! Vote them out! Vote them out! I gotta say my voice. Vote them out! Vote them out! Louder! Louder! Vote them out! Louder! Vote them out! Louder! Vote them out! Louder! Vote them out! Again! Vote them out! Vote them out! Okay. And if they didn't, it doesn't matter. They're going to be voted out anyways. We know exactly what to do if the Senate fails to pass the Protect Our Kids Act, or any individual law that stops the bloodshed in our country, as Manny just talked about. We will break voting records this November, just like we did in 2020 and the 2018 midterms. And young people are running to replace those cowards who only misrepresent us. Today, on June 11th, we are making history once again. What's more important to me is knowing that you will still be here on June 12th and beyond, because this can be the beginning of the end, but this is not the end. This is only the beginning and not the end. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I need you to say yes, so be loud so every senator can hear you. Can I count for you to be here on June 12th and June 13th and beyond? Yes! Can I count on you to be here in November and every November that we have an election after? Yes! Can I count on you to be here even when they say that the work in creating peace is impossible? Yes! Can I count on you being here no matter how long it takes, because peace takes persistence? Yes! Right now, I need you to stay in touch with us. This is the first of major actions planned in the lead up to this election and beyond, because this is the beginning and not the end of this march. So I need every single one of you to right now that's listening at home or in the crowd to take out your phones so that we can stay in touch with you. I need you to take out your phones and text NEXT to 954-954, because we need people to show up in Texas at Senator John Cornyn's office when I need you there. I need you to show up in Pat Toomey's office in Pittsburgh when I need you there. I need you to show up in Marco Rubio's office when I need you there. And the way that we do that is by everybody texting NEXT to 954-954. Again, that is NEXT to 954-954. That is how we are going to stay in touch and ensure that this is the beginning and not the end. We know what we are doing, we know what is next, and we have to continue to show up. Because we have a plan of what happens beyond June 11th, and I need you to continue marching and protesting with us beyond it as long as it takes. Every time that you don't feel hopeful, I want you to think back to your loved one that you named earlier. Think back to the people that are around you right now. Look around, look at the person to your left, and look at the person to your right. You are not alone. None of us are alone, regardless of whether or not you're a survivor or ally. We are not alone. We need to understand. I also want you to remember that America is not as divided as Congress. The most divided people in this country are not in the 50 red, blue, and purple states across the country. They are right here. They are 100 senators on Capitol Hill. Because we do have Republicans with us. We do have gun owners with us. We all want change. Either they unite behind the changes we're demanding, or we will vote them out, because all of us do agree, left and right, gun owners and non-gun owners, that we must take action to save lives now. This time is different because you are still here. Thank you to all the survivors and the activists and the violence interrupters and the students, especially to the black and brown women like Erica Ford and Poe Murray and Congresswoman McBath and many others of the gun violence prevention movement who never get enough credit. Please give them a round of applause. The only reason this movement exists is because of the decades of work that especially women have put into this. Thank you to the National Education Association. Thank you to the American Federation of Teachers who are marching with us and into November and beyond. Thank you to the young, the old, the staff members of our movement, the organizers of our movement. Thank you to the progressives, to the moderates, to the conservatives, the millions of responsible gun owners who are marching with us today. all of those who are on our side and the same side, all aligned under one goal, which is that we are going to stop this violence, stop the death, and stop the killing. This time is different. This march is only the beginning, but we must continue to show up every year and vote. And show up. If you don't take one message from today, there are two things I need you to do. Vote and show up at your state legislatures every year. Show up at your state legislatures. Congress doesn't have its act together, and we're going to continue doing all we can there. Let's get the action that we can now at the state legislative level.
Yes.
Because I firmly believe right now in this moment in American history of great division and divide, I believe if we put our politics aside and focused on our mission and why we're here, which is our kids, and the effort to create a more perfect union for them, that if we work together over the next 10 years and showed up every year voting on this issue consistently, showing up at our state legislatures, and not just showing up when this is in the headlines or when there's a march, but showing up constantly by texting next to 954, because that's how I'm going to stay in touch with you. If we did that and put our politics aside and demanded our politicians in Washington act it, we could cut gun deaths in half this decade. That would be 250,000 lives saved. 250,000 people like your best friend. But the way that we do that is by showing up every single year. So not only are we going to vote this year and march right now, we're going to continue marching and demanding action every single month, every single year, until no kid in any community, white, black, brown, undocumented, or an American citizen, until no kid has to live in fear of gun violence and no loved one has to live in fear of gun violence. Thank you, and let's keep marching.